What's going on, everybody? In a previous video, I explained my 14-year self-development journey. And by the end of the video, basically what I was saying was the key to true self-development is not accumulation. It's actually dissolving and letting go of your ego and doing release work. So in this video, what I want to do is recommend 3 books to read if you're trying to learn how to surrender, trying to learn how to let go, trying to do some type of release work, which is what this channel is basically focusing on. It's about helping people release stress, pain, and anxiety, and with practices that take less time than a coffee break. And the key is to really just learn how to surrender and to let go. So in this video, what I want to do is go over 3 books that I've read to help me understand how to let go and surrender. So book number 1, and I talked about this in the previous video, is The Untethered Soul by Michael A. Singer. Now, if you haven't read this book, the premise of this book, first of all, the book is very, very engaging. It's a fun read. And what I like about Michael Singer is the way he writes. He writes a spiritual text in a very, very logical format. He was actually a computer coder. He was the CEO of a company that was worth over billions of dollars. So not only is he a spiritualist, a person who writes on spirituality, he's also a very, very successful entrepreneur. So that's one of the things that really, really drew me to the book was his background. But also the way he writes is very, very engaging. And he writes a lot in stories, in metaphors that really, really captures your imagination. But yet at the same time, it satisfies your conscious mind because he explains it logically. Now, the main premise of this book for me, what I got out of it, is just learning how to let go, right? Is learning to understand that you are not the voice. That voice in your head that you have, you're not the voice. Yes, your voice is a part of you, but more than likely that voice was implanted in you by other ideas, other people, other messages that you may have read, television programs. It was programming from the outside world that influenced that voice. What you actually are is the witness to that voice, the witnessing consciousness. And he does a lot of little things like, thought experiments that get you to really think about this, or really, I wouldn't use the word think, but become aware of it. One of the things he says is to say hello. Like right now, say hello in your head 3 or 4 times in your head. You notice that it's there, right? Like, how do you notice it though? Because you're awake, you're conscious. And what he's trying to explain to you is that's what you truly are, is just the witnessing consciousness. But the way he explains it, he doesn't explain it in like a hippie, spiritualist, like voodoo type of way. He explains it very, very logical. And, when I read that book, I was going through a really, really hard time. It was during 2020 when we were in lockdown, and I was having anxiety attacks and panic attacks, even though everything on the outside world was great. And at the time, I wasn't afraid of disease or nothing. Like financially, I was good. I was in a loving relationship. I had everything I ever wanted, but for some reason, I just felt lost. And I didn't know what to do with myself. And I had all this time in the world to ponder and think about it. So for me, reading that book really taught me that it's not about accumulating more. It's about dissolving. It's about releasing. And when you learn to truly, truly let go, sorry, it's kind of an explosion. But when you really, really try to learn to let go, and you'll do so by reading this book, you'll really start to feel it. And it's not about expressing your emotions. It's not about suppressing your emotions. It's about experiencing your emotions. So that's what I really, really got from the book Unted Soul by Michael Singer. The second book I recommended was Letting Go, The Pathway to Surrender by David Hawkins. And what resonated with me with this book is as I was reading it, it was so funny because I'm reading and I was actually listening to it on the Audible. He basically explains the story of all of the things you've probably done to get happy, which was like self-development, affirmations, Reiki, meditation, hypnosis, NLP, sales, learning how to have a personality, fake it till you make it. He mentions all of these things, and this was, at the time, this was all of the things that I've done. And he was like, but you still feel lost at the end of it. Like he mentioned all of these things and you still felt lost. And I was like, wow, this is me. And so basically what he said was the key was to, again, just let go. Learn how to release stored up trauma in the body. Now, the way he says you do this is one of the key things he teaches is that in order for you to release, you have to go into the body. Like, for instance, when you get anxious, a key question to ask yourself is, how do you know? So right now, when you get anxiety or you get depression, how do you know? More than likely, you're going to say, I feel it. Where? And what you'll notice, like for me, at the time, I was really, really suffering with anxiety. When I would get anxious, I would feel like this knot in my throat. So what he would say is when you start to feel and experience this feeling, locate it and just sit with it and let it be. Experience it fully. You don't have to express it. You don't have to suppress it and ignore it. So like I was a master at the time of ignoring my feelings or expressing my feelings. But I wasn't good at experiencing my feelings. So what he was saying is you just got to sit there with it. And if you sit there with it and you experience it and you let it be there and you allow it to come up more and more, that over time, what it will start to do is it'll start to transmute, it'll start to flow. And you'll start to actually just start to let it go. You'll start to release it. And the only problem I had with this book is he didn't really give practical steps on how to do it. But, you know, what I would recommend in the Unted Soul, like one of the things he talked about was low-hanging fruit. You could do things like this in little doses. Like for instance, like Michael Singer recommends, like, let's say you're driving and road rage occurs, somebody cuts you off. Can you handle that? Oh, you're angry right now. How do you know? Oh, I feel my jaw clenching. I feel my neck getting tight. What they would recommend is you just sit there and you be with it and you relax into it. Now, the key here is when you relax into it, that doesn't mean the feeling is going to relax. It might actually get worse because when you relax, it's going to start to come up even more. So the feeling's not going to relax, but you, the witnessing consciousness, the person who's witnessing it, the person who's observing it, you can relax. And then over time, the more you do that, you allow yourself to experience the feeling fully, you can learn to detach yourself from it and pull back. So that's what those two books were all about. And the third book is a recent book that I just read. It's called Deep Clearing by John Ruskin. And what I like about this book is he teaches actual meditations on how to train yourself to do this in real life. So he recommends like you don't actually try to go out into the world and do this. You have to actually train yourself a little bit by meditating and visualizing certain scenarios. So one of the things he recommends is like when you're sitting here and you're meditating, first thing you got to do is learn how to relax. And he recommends doing HRV breathing, which is basically you breathe in for 5 seconds and out for 5 seconds. And you focus on your breathing for 10 minutes. So basically you breathe in, count to 5, breathe out, count to 5. And over time, if you do this for about 10 minutes, what happens is your brain goes into what's called an alpha state. You start to really relax and you allow the unconscious to open up, the dark side of you, the shadow, the subconscious. You allow that to open up. Then from there, once you get into a deep relaxation state, you could visually imagine an experience that happened to you recently that triggers you. So again, if it's the road rage, imagine you're driving and somebody cuts you off. And how do you feel when that happens? And when you see that happen in your imagination, you'll actually feel the feeling or sensation. Now, once you feel the feeling or sensation, what you do there is you drop the image, which is the road rage, and you just sit with the feeling. So from here, you sit with the feeling, you become aware of the feeling. Then from there, you directly experience it and you just sit with it. And as you sit with it, you'll learn that it'll start to flow and you just sit there with it. And then every once in a while, if you start to lose the feeling, you come back to the image to regain the feeling. And if you keep doing this back and forth, you keep going back to the road rage and it triggers you, you're allowing it to come up more and more. And then eventually by the third or fourth time that you do it, you'll notice that you don't feel that way no more. And then what happens is it'll correlate to actual real life because they say the mind doesn't know the difference between vivid imagination and reality. It's like you're actually visually training yourself to react or respond in a certain way when things happen. So then the final step for him, what he says is you got to detach from it. You got to pull back. And how he recommends you do this is you look up to what he calls your third eye, and you basically float above it, and it's basically you're pulling yourself back from it, and you allow the feeling to go. So if you're looking to learn how to surrender, learn to let go, if you're looking to do release work, if you're looking to be more present to the moment, if you're looking to be more calm, if you're looking to enter the flow state more consistently, if you're looking to merge with life, if you're looking to really, really experience life to the fullest, I really recommend you get those 3 books. The 3 books again is The Unted Soul by Michael Singer, Letting Go, The Pathway to Surrender by David Hawkins, and Deep Clearing by John Ruskin. And as you read these books, it could truly, truly transform your life. And it could really, really speed up your self-development journey. Because if you watched my previous video on self-development, I wasted so much time learning all these techniques and tricks to accumulate more and more, when in fact, it's more about dissolving what you already know and just letting go of your bad habits. And these 3 books will really, really speed that up. So if you're interested, please get those 3 books. Hopefully you like the video. If you like the video, please comment in the comment section below. Let me know what you think. Also, if you have a friend who's always trapped in his head, who can't get out of his head, who's always just stuck, who's always anxious, who's always seems to be living a life of chaos, send them this video and tell them about these 3 books. And also, if you haven't already, subscribe now. Peace.